Hello, everybody. We're going to wait about another minute and see who else joins us. It looks like some folks are having problems staying connected. So we'll give about another minute and then we will get started with our WICOR presentation. Thank you all for being here.
Hello, everybody. Can y'all hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Nicole, I don't know if I can. For a minute, I saw your mouth moving, but I couldn't hear anything. So I didn't know if you had have you already introduced this?
No, I just said we were going to wait about another minute
to see
how many folks joined us, and then we'd get started.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
All right, I think we should just go ahead and get going. I know we have several more that have RSVP'd, but we'll just let them join later. I'm going to go ahead and, I think Nicole, thank you, Nicole, for recording that for us.
Yes.
Did you record it? Yeah, you hit record? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. So we're recording today, and so we'll have this available later for your reference if you want to reference back to it. So that way, we all have a little more access to it, because it may be a lot of information, but we certainly want this to be interactive. Please feel free to share, to discuss, and we're going to get through the W and I of WICOR today. The second part will be collaboration, organization, and reading. But before I get into all that, I'm Stephanie Bain de los Santos, and this is my friend, partner in crime, and my co-moderator, Miss Nicole Morris. And I'll let Nicole tell you a little bit about herself.
Oh, there's not a whole lot to tell. So I am a lecturer in art, communications, and theater. I teach communication, speech, as well as journalism. Prior to that, though, I was the UNIV coordinator, which is where I worked with Stephanie in the Center for Student Success. I guess I was there about 3 years. And before that, I taught Texas government. And what crimes have I committed? Oh, it's not not this kind of session. A girl never tells, right? Before that, I taught Texas government because I also have a master's in history and political science. So that's a little bit about me.
And I think I know pretty much everybody in here, but I work for the Center for Student Success, and I think this is about my 7th year there. And I teach freshman seminar, and then that's about a third of my job. And then the rest I do professional development, and I'm the AVID coordinator on campus. So I conduct trainings like the one you're in today, and I'm certified to give you your certificate for today. And as well as Nicole, she's also certified in WICOR. So both of us can go ahead and give you this training today. Okay, let's see. So as we're going through this today, obviously we're not going to do like a true teach-in, but when Nicole and I were talking about how we wanted to let this be relevant, not only online, but something you can easily transition to the classroom. I know many of y'all have, if you've come to our trainings, you've seen this about the tree tent, but we wanted to do the virtual version of that. So if you go to your chat box, what I'd like you to do is just kind of introduce yourself a little bit. You know, what do you teach? Where are you from? What are you looking forward to getting out of this session? And then something fun, if we could travel right now, right? Like I've got a whole list of places I want to go. Where would you go? Okay, and then we obviously know your name, but if there's something else you'd like to be called or something separate, you put that on there. So we'll give you a few minutes to do that.
And I'm going to go ahead and put mine in there so you can just model right after me also.
Great.
So there's mine. So you can just keep it simple just like that. We'll give you a couple of minutes to get that on there. Scotland.
Where do you want to travel, Nicole? Oh, just anywhere on the beach.
Anywhere.
Well, maybe that's Corpus Christi Beach.
Not the living room or the backyard. Very good. So it's from India. Wonderful.
Oh, very cool. Oh,
Virginia Beach.
Sounds nice.
Miss
Oh,
China.
I'm in China.
I've never been to China, Nick, but that's someplace I'd like to go. Graduate so short. No. Roll Tide. Very good. New Zealand. I so want to go to New Zealand.
Yeah.
Antarctica, Craig. That's an interesting answer.
Wow.
Wow.
Y'all watch Godzilla? I know y'all are going to. Didn't that where one of the monsters from Godzilla was frozen in there in Antarctica? I don't know. I like sci-fi. What can I say? I like sci-fi. I'd be a little scared to go there since the ancient aliens and the...
What about Antarctica is appealing, Craig? Like rock and roll. I like rock and roll.
Yes.
Wow. Louise, you've been to a lot of places. So Texas has got to be different, very different from all these cold places you've lived in.
Oh, I know.
Oh, Craig, that certainly sounds like a bucket list reason to go to Antarctica. The color blue there is said to be the only place with that blue. Nice.
Oh my God.
Diving. Okay. I'm terrified of the water. So big props to you. I'm scared of the water. How wonderful that must be, though, right? Diving deep.
It's called Megalodon, the giant shark, gonna eat me up in that deep water. I don't think so. If I didn't think the group that I would be traveling with would leave me in Antarctica and have them crazy by the time we got down there, I might try and do that.
They would leave her.
I tried counting the grains of sand on a beach, but I had to stop because there are too many. Oh my gosh.
So, So this is just a quick way, right, to get to learn, to learn a little bit something about your students and one another. Keep it really casual and fun, because you've got to create that really comfortable atmosphere, right, for your students, so that they're willing to talk to you and be more comfortable to engage in the classroom with you. What's downhill skiing is my favorite. Wow. See, I can't ski either. I can't ski. Oh, look, Liz Kim, my friend, art history. She would like to go to Finland. That would be nice too.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. We'll see a reindeer. We have reindeer there.
So I guess along that vein, right, Stephanie, of being able to create an engaging classroom in which students can feel comfortable and you can truly reach them leads us to the first short video we are going to show you from Jonathan Grant Brown. Steph, do you want to tell us a little bit about Jonathan?
So Jonathan Grant Brown is probably, you would say, one of the best speakers I've ever heard. If you've ever had the opportunity to hear him and his story, I don't want to just steal his thunder on this video, but he, at the very young age, was dropped off at a park, him and his brother, by their mother, and she never came back for them. And so when he tells his story, and she was a druggie, and I think still today she may suffer with drug problems. I don't know how much he still has any contact with her, but it chronicles his life and how a teacher, many teachers, specifically one teacher, just made such a difference. And he'll tell you, he'll be like, if it wasn't for this teacher and getting me into the AVID program, which is a college prep in K-12, that he would have not ever gone to college. And now that he's a college graduate, he works for AVID, and he goes around and does professional developments. Maybe you've been here when he has conducted a professional development, and hopefully as soon as COVID's over and we get the vaccine or something, we would love to have him on campus next semester, at the end of the semester, if they're able to travel. If not, for sure in the fall for another training. So please be on the lookout for that. It's just powerful, his story. So he works for AVID now. But he grew up through the AVID system. And if you're like, man, what is AVID? What's going on? He's going to explain a little bit about what it is. But Nicole and I really wanted to show you this video because this is what we're here for, right? We're here for our students. And even though we're at the collegiate level, you could even argue now we have even a greater purpose to make an impact on these students. So Nicole is going to pull up that video, share her screen. Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I guess the easiest way to begin is to start from the beginning. When I was about 4 years old, my mom took my little brother Tiger and I to a playground park in Lampasas, Texas. And we were there with some other kids. We were hanging out, playing around, and having a good time. And my mom comes up to me. She said, I'm going to go across the street to a Winn-Dixie and get some groceries for a picnic. And she wanted Tiger and I to stay at the park. So Tiger and I stayed, and she left, and she went across the street. We continued to play with the kids. And as the day went on, it started to get dark. The other kids left. But my mom never came back. The immense amount of work that goes behind the science of learning and the science of teaching is what ultimately ignites these opportunities for students to progress professionally and educationally. As a student, AVID wasn't the thing that fixed us. It was the people who were doing AVID that gave us this opportunity to really take hold of a future that wasn't necessarily an option for a lot of us. Now, growing up in foster care for Tiger and I was very difficult. We were forced to move into these homes with people who looked nothing like us, who talked nothing like us, who didn't eat the same foods we ate, who didn't watch the same shows that we watched, and we were expected to call them mom and dad. This duo got so bad that they had to split us up. And it sounds so cliche to think that two brothers grow up in the same place and wind up in two completely different ends. But that's exactly what happened. My whole life, I didn't want to be recognized. I didn't want to be noticed. I just wanted to be a regular kid with regular kid problems. But for some reason, Jonathan Grant kept getting recognized for the wrong things. I think as a kid, I wasn't really able to see past today. Like this place called college, it didn't seem so far away. It just didn't seem realistic. Everyone always told me I had potential, which I hated as a little kid. I hated that idea of, oh, you have so much potential, because that meant expectations, and that meant people wanted things for you that you knew you couldn't have because your life wasn't the same, or my life wasn't the same as everyone else's. I never would have guessed I'd end up where I am today. I was the kid that sit in the back of the class and the teacher would say, Jonathan, please shut your mouth. You're disrupting my class. I would have got up out my seat, tossed it back. Because I don't even know why you're talking to me like that. You got all those other kids over there laughing and talking and cutting up. You're going to pick me out of the whole group and put me on blast. And then I would have walked out of the classroom, I'd have slammed the door behind me, then I'd have peeked through the little window, make sure everybody saw me. And then I would have walked really slowly to the principal's office saying, please let somebody run into me. Because that was the mentality that I had. I tended to be the kid who got in a lot of trouble, but a lot of people loved. Like a lot of teachers really stuck their neck out for me. A lot of coaches tried real hard with me to give me, a lot of principals gave me a ton of second chances. It was like putting on a mask, but that mask was very comfortable. That person who I was that I portrayed to everybody was a version of me. It was just a version of me that I liked. And it was the version of me that I was gonna let people see. I had this rule that you couldn't like me too much, because if you liked me too much, I would start to like you, and then I would mess up something, and then I would get moved, and I would never see those people again. So it was this fine balance of wearing this mask of portraying a positive, happy-go-lucky kid who you better not mess with, because when I get mad, I'm gonna throw down. And really the truth behind it all, which was I was struggling emotionally with the fact that I was a foster kid and I didn't know where I was gonna live. I didn't know where I was gonna get my school books from or my school clothes from. Like, it was just adult thinking that I figured out I could compartmentalize by being two different people, I guess. When I moved into high school, I was presented with a new problem. That problem was when you turn 18 in foster care, you gotta move out. You're on your own. Turning 18 meant the end. It meant I no longer had a guaranteed place to live. I no longer had a guaranteed place to eat. So it wasn't important to go beyond 18. It was like, okay, this is the life I got. I'm gonna live it. I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna do what I want to do. And of course, I had a lot of people trying to interrupt that. Like, I had a lot of people working really, really hard to keep me on a positive track. If it wasn't for particular teachers like David Dybel interrupting my life, and I call it an interruption because I hated it, I didn't want it, I didn't like it, and I ran from it. But they just kept doing it enough until it caught on. Halfway through my freshman year in high school, I was introduced to the AVID program, and believe it or not, my Algebra 2 teacher nominated me for it. He was one of those math teachers that thought he was way too cool. He came into the classroom the first day of school and said, ladies and gentlemen, my name is David Dybel. I want y'all to call me D squared. Oh, man. Mr. D squared, I got you. That's my boy. And he came up to me one day and he said, Mr. Brown, I have this application for this program called AVID. I think you'd be a very good candidate. It's about getting kids into college. And by this time in life, I got pretty good at telling people what they wanted to hear. So I told Mr. D squared, yeah, I got you. And what I figured I would do is not go and then come back the next day and tell Mr. D squared, man, you set me up. They don't want somebody like me. How you gonna do me like that, Mr. D squared? And so as I left the classroom, I crumpled up the application and I threw it away. Well, the next day, Mr. D squared had that crumpled up application taped to my locker with a little sticky note that said, you will go to this interview, D squared. So I went into the interview and Paige Tallman, my AVID teacher, and Linda Goo were there. They were interviewing me. And I was telling them everything that I thought they wanted to hear. And then the conversation kind of got a little serious. You see, I never told anyone outside of the system that I was a foster child because I was ashamed. But I slipped up this one time. Miss Good asked me, she said, Jonathan, what do you want to do with your future? I said, Miss Good, I don't have a future. I said, when I turn 18, I don't even have a home. So how can I possibly have a future? And I expected her to feel sorry for me because that's usually the response that you get when you tell someone something like that. oh, poor kid, whatever you need, I'll take care of it for you. But I didn't want her to feel sorry for me. And she didn't. She said, you know what, Jonathan, there's gonna be a lot of things in life that you go through, I go through, they go through, we all go through. And she said, but you know what? It's those things that you go through that are gonna make the brighter future for you. Because you know, once you put your mind to something, you had to work to get it. It's valuable to you in the end. And she said, Jonathan, those are the types of people that we want in AVID. And then she said, Jonathan, we want you in AVID. And I believed her. You know, if anyone asked in 8th grade who was your favorite teacher, she was probably one of the teachers' names that came up. When I met her officially was in 9th grade, so when I was a freshman in high school. And very quickly, she was not the person to try to run game on. Like, she was not the teacher that was going to put up with any BS, but she was also going to be the teacher who was always in the room when you needed her. She was going to be the teacher who was always in the right place with, you know, open arms and open ears to hear about what's going on and help you kind of create a pathway. So the AVID classroom kind of became like this, it's weird to say home, but like it became home base for a lot of us, where we knew we had a set of friends. We knew we had a place where we could kind of escape for a little bit of the hustle and bustle of high school. It was kind of that magnetic place where we all came together, and it felt safe. If that's not too cliche to say, I think it felt like a place where we really could be our authentic selves. And that allowed us to kind of find a love for the type of work and the type of learning that we were.
Okay, I think that's a good. I think that's a good stopping point there on the video, and I think it's a poignant place to stop in that he has a powerful message, right, about how educators gave him a purpose, right? And I think it's also important to remember as educators, before we get into the work we're going to do together today, is to remember that we have a powerful role, right, with our students. And at the end of the day, we need to, I think, always remember we don't know what our students are going through, right? And I think it's important to always be empathetic with them. And I'm not saying let them run over you, because if you give them an inch, they will try to do that. And I think we all know that. We've all experienced that, I'm sure. But we truly don't know what some of these students are dealing with at home. And if we create this classroom in which they're comfortable, right, they'll be able to share with you, and you might be able to reach them at a different level.
Yes. Okay, so today we're going to start off with what makes an effective teacher. And so throughout this presentation, we're going to be utilizing the Blackboard, I guess you could say things in Blackboard, right, that might help you. And one of those is a whiteboard. I'm obviously sharing my screen with you all. Nicole is going to utilize the breakout groups in one. So if you're like, oh my gosh, what are y'all talking about? We'll get to show you things today, okay?
Right. So in Blackboard, if you're teaching using Collaborate, which I think most of us are, you can put people into groups. So I just selected breakout groups, 2 groups, and so Collaborate automatically populated the groups for us. So you can see now that you are in groups. So group 1 has 7 participants and group 2 has 6. And so what we want you to do, so group 1, we want you to answer this question: what makes an effective teacher? And we want you to each come up with your own response, or you can talk amongst yourself and come up from the teacher's perspective, right? From the professor's perspective, what makes an effective teacher? Group 2, we want you to spend a couple minutes talking amongst yourself and come up with some ideas as to what makes an effective professor, but from a student's perspective. And then we'll let you do that. And while you do that, Steph's going to open up, I think, the whiteboard, and we are going to do a T-chart, right? So in a classroom, you can put students in group, and you can use butcher paper and have them work together and share their responses and get them up and moving. But since we're working in Collaborate, we're going to do it this way, and we'll type your responses for you. So group 1, what makes an effective professor from the professor's perspective? Group 2, what makes an effective professor from a student's perspective? Oh, sorry, that was my watch. From a student's perspective, okay? So give you a few minutes and see what you can come up with in your groups. And if you have a question, just shout out at us. That's fine. Hey, that's a pretty good looking tea there, Steph.
It looks nice. Oh my gosh, that's too funny. Cool deal. Oh gosh. Let me do this. I didn't mean to do that. I gotta do this all over. Oh no, that's bad.
That's fine. So you're using the pencil, and it's you gotta have a pretty steady hand.
Yeah.
Looks like we had some folks who popped out and are popping back in.
I just was sent to group 1. Yes.
Yeah, so you're in group 1 now, Teresa? That's fine. So group 1 is doing, okay, so yeah, that's fine. So group 1's doing from the teacher perspective, and group 2 is doing from the student perspective to answer the question. Okay, so Teresa, the groups are answering the question, what makes an effective teacher? So if you are in group 1, we want you to come up with the list of what you think makes an effective teacher from the teacher's perspective. So what do you think makes an effective teacher? Hi, Tim, that's fine.
Assign Tim. Oh, okay. So Teresa, we're gonna put her in group 1, right? Teresa, I'm gonna move you to the group. Okay, I'm gonna move you right now. There you go. And then Tim, Nicole, do you want to put him in group 2?
I'm not able to move him.
Oh no. Okay. Well, let me move. All right. Everybody should be in a group. Here we go.
Oh, wait, here we go. You got him now? Okay.
Yes. Cool deal. All right, everybody's in a group. I do like the breakout groups.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. Mm-hmm. At Avid National Conference, they used like breakout groups a lot.
Okay, so the groups are pretty even now. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll go about another minute or two, and then we'll start sharing. Okay, so do we want to see what the individual groups came up with? So let's start with group 1, who was tasked with answering what makes an effective teacher from the teacher perspective.
Okay, see, we're back.
Yay.
Yes. Okay, so people that are in the teacher group, what makes an effective teacher?
Can I just say it, or am I not supposed to be talking? Because everybody seems to be using chat. So are we supposed to chat, or are we supposed to give this verbally?
Verbally.
Yes, verbally.
Okay. A teacher is knowledgeable.
Okay, teacher's knowledge.
Prepared/organized.
Sorry, y'all. I got my finger stuck here. Oh, thank you, Nicole.
Subject expert. Whoops. Oh, we both typed on the board. Subject
Okay.
expert. Okay, anything else? I'll let you type, Steph.
Available to students. Available to students.
Okay.
Somebody on the chat said good communication skills.
Yeah. Patience. Energetic. Yes, yes, yes.
Energetic, empathetic.
Motivating.
You're also versatile.
Yeah.
Is that the same as flexible?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's a little different, yeah. Versatile and flexible.
Yeah.
I guess
Okay.
by flexible, I mean adaptable. It's more,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
more adaptable than flexible. Like
Yeah.
what we had to do in the springtime with adapt to all online courses.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Inventive.
Inventive, I like that one.
Yeah, innovation, inventive.
These are all wonderful, wonderful
Yeah,
responses.
they are. Innovation. Oh, yeah. We have to think outside the box, right?
Mm-hmm. Got
I
to be
wonder
prepared
how.
about anything.
Yeah. And my question is, and I know I love that we have a variety of different content areas, and just to see how are y'all doing, especially with some of these larger classes and different content areas. How have y'all been able to bridge that gap? Has it been difficult? What's going on there? Okay, so I feel like that's a really good teacher perspective. That's awesome. What about from the student side? What did y'all come up with?
Understanding.
You got that, Nicole, right? You're going to type. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think ownership, the sense of diligence.
Yeah, motivated.
So as a student, then you want your professor to be understanding, diligent, take ownership. What do you mean by ownership? Take ownership, be motivated.
Take ownership, study for themselves.
Yeah. So, that's a really good point. Sometimes the faculty member, I mean, I know y'all are experts, content experts, but I know that I've had experiences where, I've gone in to observe a classroom and everybody's kind of like, what are we learning today? And even the faculty member will just be like, teacher will be like, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with this too. And that's okay, right? Like, I mean, I don't know what it's like to have like a super crazy, like, equation to solve. Like, we would all be there forever because I'd never figure it out. But I think sometimes the students will, if I go in at UNIV and I'm looking at them like, oh, I don't even know what to do with a resume, obviously that's a lot different, right, than solving a crazy problem on TV or on the board. So anyway, something to think about. Time management. Okay, so students feel like teachers should be prepared, be enthusiastic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For sure. Well, I think that's a really good starting place for today.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think you all had some wonderful responses here.
Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and get out of the whiteboard and go back to the presentation. Okay.
So just real quick about that, right? It's always important to remember that our expectations as an instructor can be very different than the expectations that the student has, right? And so we have to be willing to not only ask for their feedback, but also be willing to truly listen to that feedback, right? Even if it hurts a little bit sometimes.
Yes.
Okay.
So I know we've taken a little time at the beginning, but what you don't realize is that we already incorporated teaching strategies just in this introduction and just in this, we might call it an icebreaker, okay? But the foundation of this training, of professional development, of what we do, as educators, is we are reaching our students, right? Sometimes we get caught up in other things, and I totally understand it. And then I have to step back and I have to be like, oh my gosh, this is so horrible. This is so hard that I have to do this and I have to, juggle this. But at the end of the day, our students are what we're here for, right? So what is WICOR? WICOR stands for Writing, Inquiry, Collaboration, Organization, and Reading, and is a collection of teaching and learning strategies that guide students in comprehending concepts and articulating ideas at increasingly complex levels. WICOR strategies support student learning in any classroom on campus, and that's virtual as well. Okay, so the first component we're going to talk about is writing. And I know sometimes we all get a little scared to do, I don't know if scared is the word, but I know in my classroom sometimes I am scared to have them write a paper because I'm like, it's going to take me 3 times, the time it should take to grade this and, look at grammatical errors. But if we're incorporating writing consistently throughout our classroom, we are engaging them in a higher level of learning. We're encouraging them to be self-motivated and be able to articulate their thoughts. Okay? We're in this texting talk world, and I'm teaching 2 online classes this semester, and it's like they have emailed me, the professor, with text talk and no capitalization, no punctuation, and I just emailed back. I'm like, please, use correct grammar and punctuation and reread what you're sending to me, as well as, read your syllabus too. So writing is a very important component. It's a learning tool, personal and public communication tool. And some of you that have been teaching, 10, 15, 20 years, maybe you've seen 30 years, some of you 40 years, you've probably seen that communication change over the years. So if you want to speak up on that or just, reflect on that. I know I have, and I've been teaching over 13 years, and even I've seen that, with just text talk. Okay, students who write, they consider audience and purpose, engage in various writing processes to address specific situations, support their thinking, and demonstrate understanding. I know Nicole teaches speech classes, communication classes, so I'm sure she's about ready to pull her hair out half the time.
Yeah, we've got Dr. Shulo with us here today, and I'm sure he can also attest to that. Yeah.
And just sometimes, just support their thinking. They are not, I'm not saying that. I was a middle school and high school teacher. Many times they may not have the opportunities to get up in front of the classroom. They should have many opportunities to write a paper, things like that. But as far as being independent, I don't know how many of them have been independent on relying upon themselves to do it, as opposed to like a group activity in many things. And then when they get to your exams and it's like short answer, right, or essay, they don't know how to support their thinking. It's just like 1 or 2 words, and you're like, wait a minute, this was like a short answer. What's happened here? Okay, so the whole purpose of writing, incorporating that throughout your class, is to get them thinking, being able to communicate. That way, when they come to you, either on an email, in your assessments, moving forward in your class, some of you do like Bio 1, Bio 2, or English 1, 2, and so you may see them again, but we also want to pass them on, as they pass our class, so that they can utilize these techniques, instructions, this knowledge in other classes as well. So by helping our students, we're helping others, and by others doing these types of things, it'll certainly help. So WICOR stands for writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. Thanks, Nicole. Slide right here is just a few things that incorporate writing. And I can certainly share with you all some teaching strategies, a link to that. In fact, I'll send it when I send your certificates, I'll send this to you in a PDF. If you've come to my trainings before, you've seen them, the high impact practice strategies, but I will share them with you again just so you can get a little, I say it's a little book. Nicole, is it probably like 50 pages or something, this strategies list? But these are just some of the strategies that you can use in writing. Pre-write, draft, read a response, revise, edit, publish, and reflect, right? That's the process, which if you ask a student, oh, do you ever pre-write? They probably look at you like you're crazy. And writing to learn, Cornell note-taking, quick writes and reflections, learning logs, peer evaluation, and authentic writing. We're not doing Cornell note-taking examples today, but that is a great way. We actually have a training on that. I need to schedule it out. If you're interested in it, email me, and we can do like a short training on that. If we can get them to do the correct note-taking, it takes your class to a completely different level. Cornell Notes, and I don't really want to get down that road, but if you want to Google it, look at it, it's something definitely that if your students haven't been introduced to it, it is certainly worth introducing to them to teach them how to take notes in your class.
You might find that also under focus note-taking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think it's important to realize here the writing we're talking about incorporating in your class on a regular basis here, we're not talking long essay writing. That's not the kind of writing we're talking about. We're not trying to give you more grading to do. We're talking about how to incorporate writing in your classes regardless of what subject you're teaching. Yes, Tim, you have a question. I think your mic might be off.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
I used the Cornell notes for my theories class, and it went really well. I put the framework in there. They just had to put the notes in themselves, so it's I can testify to that one.
Oh, awesome.
Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, we could definitely schedule a separate training for that if anybody's interested. It does make a difference with their note taking and as far as being able to capture the main points that they need to capture from a lecture. So definitely.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you've used that. That's awesome. Okay, and this is just saying what we've already talked about. I think a lot of times people are like, oh, this is not an English class. And I know all of us here know, because we also research, well, hello, it doesn't need to be an English class to utilize writing. Writing is in everything we do. Reading and writing. Okay, so Avid has developed a series of strategies, these high-end practices. You may have heard them termed as, or best practices if you're in the College of Ed. You might hear the term best practices or high impact practice strategies. And if you take anything away from the reading and writing or WICOR, is that writing and then the reading at the end, right? That anchors everything in your classroom. Okay. So if we can keep them engaged, and I know you may ask, well, how am I going to get them reading? When we get to that, the second part, I can teach you to do some things like a poll online or like ticket out the door or something like that to do that constant assessment, whether it just be a quick oral assessment, something to make sure that they're reading, right, a pop quiz or something. Okay, get off, sorry. I know Nicole is going to break us out into some groups, small groups again. Nicole, are we doing that now?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do a quick write. And this is a little different than what it would be if it was, obviously face-to-face. And you can tag on from a quick write. Let me get back here, tell you what we're looking for. Quick writes are focused and yet non-threatening, right? We just want this to be very casual. They're short, and students usually respond to the prompt that stimulates their thinking. So today's prompt is, what does an engaging virtual classroom look like to you? Okay, so we're going to give you a couple of minutes to write this down by yourselves. Then Nicole's going to do the breakout groups and put you in the groups, and then we're going to come back and discuss. So right now by yourselves, oh, I think we already, let's pull them back, Nicole, real quick from the groups, and then we can then get them back in. Is that okay? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I guess they can't hear us from over there. Hey guys,
we also lost a couple of people. Sorry, they're logging back in. Okay.
We're getting put into groups without having time to hear the instructions. Can you?
Yes, all right. I clicked
the instructions.
We're back now.
Yes. Okay. We'll go ahead and give those instructions. Sorry, y'all. So when you go into your groups, what we'd like you to do is discuss, what does an engaging virtual classroom look like to you? Okay. So what does that look like? I want you to take a couple of minutes by yourself, and then that way you have some thoughts to discuss with your group. So maybe in the next minute, give you about a minute to 2 minutes. So when they're doing a quick write, you can give them a minute and a half, 2 minutes. You can give them up to 5 minutes. And then if you want to break them out into groups for collaborative session, that's certainly appropriate. And then when you bring them back to discuss as a whole, so you see that they've had their initial thought, they've spoken with a small group, then they're relaying the information that they've gathered from others to the entire group. Okay? So I'll give y'all another minute, and then Nicole's going to break y'all out into groups, and then we'll bring you back from those groups whenever we're ready.
We'll put the groups back together in just a moment. So yeah, the question you are going to answer in your quick write is, what does an engaging virtual classroom look like to you? Sometimes if you ask questions, they answer. Sometimes they don't. You know, you can be in a classroom that's full of crickets. And so what's good about a quick write is you can throw a question up, give them a few minutes, you know, so that they're comfortable and they can put their thoughts down. If you let them collaborate with one another, that helps them build some confidence, right? Also, and they can see if they're understanding the material. Sometimes students learn peer-to-peer, you know, really well. And so this is just an activity you can do really quickly in class, and it won't take but, you know, 7 minutes to do the whole activity from start to end. And it's just one way to kind of measure if your students have picked up on the main point of your lecture or your activity for the day. So we're going to go ahead and put you in your groups. So finish writing your quick write. As a group, you can kind of discuss your answers. Yeah, definitely smaller classes are easy to manage. We'll put you in your groups, talk amongst yourself for a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back, and then we're going to have you all pick one person in your group to speak for the group to kind of share a collective response. Okay? So I'm going to put you in your groups now. Looks like some people are struggling with their connections.
Well, I know that my neighbors are gamers, and all these kids in my neighborhood will be on the internet sucking it dry. And so even though I have, I don't know, speedy internet, you know what it's called, but I can't get it sometimes. So I have to search in certain areas. And then, you know, on Fridays, I just thank the Lord, you know, that they're gone, that the darn yard people want to mow. Everybody wants to mow at the same time. So it sounds like, you know, 18-wheelers blowing up and down my street. So I'm just thankful that I have connection right now. And then I can, you know, you don't have to hear that. Like my first training, how horrible is that? A bulldozer coming down the way.
It's all right. Do you think we're ready to bring them back or another minute?
Maybe like another minute and then we'll bring him back.
Okay.
It's good.
Yeah, these breakout groups work really well.
Love the breakout groups. Yeah, unfortunately, if people didn't log in today, they're not going to get an opportunity to do this again until next semester. So,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully.
mm-hmm. Okay, I think that's good, and then we'll just like orally talk about it.
Yes, we'll just we'll ask for somebody from group 1, and then group 2, and then group 3. I
Yeah.
did the groups so they'd be a little smaller this time, and we'll just ask them to share their thoughts.
Sounds good.
Okay. Are we going to put the? We're not going to put them on the whiteboard this time, right? We're just going to talk.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to bring them back. Ready?
All right.
1, 2, 3, go. Well, I say that, but they're not.
Ever talking. And so, well, hell with it.
That's all I heard when y'all came in.
I was right in the middle of something. You know, I was right in the middle of sharing. So,
That's okay. So we can't monitor what you're doing in the group. So
well, now I know how my students feel when I drag them back into the mindful.
Yeah, be mindful of that if you're doing breakout groups in Blackboard. We can't monitor what's going on in there, so that's why we're like, we'll give you a few minutes. I guess we should have just given you like an exact time, right? Lesson learned. Sorry about that, Teresa.
I'm just doomed. So.
With that said, who from group 1 wants to share? Anybody from group 1?
So let's hear from someone from group 1, right? And let us know kind of what the collective thought was when it comes to what an engaging virtual classroom might look like.
And could y'all take your mics off and do it? I know that some of us will be in the chat, but whoever's representing y'all, if you wouldn't mind just taking yourself off mute and discussing that. Let me go over here. Let's see who is in the groups.
Or if group 1 is shy, someone from group 2 can go first.
Yeah.
Group 3.
Yeah, group 3.
Show them how it's done, Tim.
All right. Well, we did. Dr. Young had mentioned that she likes to have the students keep their video up so that they can see each other, and it wasn't just to like keep them just make sure they're getting their attendance in, but rather to make sure that they're getting to know who each other are.
We were told we could not require students to put up their, to share their video. So I have told my students, I would like for you to share your video while you're speaking, because I have students now, this is their first year in the social work program, so they don't even know what each other look like. Shoot, I don't know what they look like, so when we come back together on the, face to face, I'm not going to recognize them. I may have been teaching them for the fall semester, and I won't know what they look like. Plus I am not convinced, and I'm not silly enough to think that there aren't students who turn their computers on and walk away, because as I was saying, whenever I got interrupted, I had a class where one of my students actually complained to me. She said, it's like there's only 4 of us in the class because there's only 4 of us that ever say anything. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to start calling on them. And so I started calling on them, because we can only see like, maybe 1 or 2 people on Collaborate anyway. So I started calling on them, and, I was amazed at how many weren't listening, or had walked away. And I would get emails after class saying, oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Young, but I had to step away. And, to me, that's just the students that are engaged. They're going to ask questions about, what we've been talking about, and their questions are going to add to the to the content of the discussion.
I think we can all relate to that, Dr. Young. Tim, do you have any suggestions, or would you like to continue?
Yeah, for me, I have similar concerns sometimes, but what I've been also doing is a lot. I mean, just because of the nature of my field, I get to have students kind of personalize everything we talk about. One class we just talked about puberty, another class our emerging adulthood. We talked about why some people take a gap year. And so sometimes you'll see their names and, might not recognize some of them, but you can call their name and then just say, is this similar to the kind of experience you've had? Or what do you think about this? And, give some examples. And then that gets them going. So I also like to sit forward in my lectures as well, like especially if we're online, because then I feel like I can talk quicker, or not to outpace them or anything, but just keep the energy going a little bit. And they know that there's a chance that you're going to ask them to share their own experience, and they tend to like that. I think they tend to respond pretty positively.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely. So it is challenging, right, to try to keep the students engaged, and it certainly is difficult when you suspect, right, that they're logging in and walking off. But I think if you set that expectation right off the bat, like I am going to be calling on all of you at some point, then maybe they won't walk off so much, right? Just log in and roll back over in bed and go back to sleep or something.
Yeah.
I think we've all kind of experienced some of this since last spring. I know that I have a couple of students in one of my speech classes that do that, and so I make a point to call on them, and then they get a 0 for that activity we're working on. And sometimes you have to do that to send a message, unfortunately.
Dr. Jones, who teaches doc level politics and education and several other courses. So this is several years ago, right? And we would be in his class, and it's all before COVID, right? And he would do a hybrid, a face-to-face and online. And even we were adults, right? Like in this class, he would still go through and be like, Stephanie, what do you think about this? And ask specific questions. And people were just scared to death. So when I see Dr. Jones again, I'm going to have to be like, hey, like you were doing that way back when, already online. But yeah, he would totally call us out, scare us half to death, So people in doc level, master's level, whatever, they're doing the same thing, right? So when we think about, the maturity level of an 18-year-old as opposed to a 45-year-old or 50-year-old or 60-year-old, like it's a lot different. But just think about those expectations when we're in there.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add from one of the other groups? If not, I think we can move on to inquiry. Okay.
So inquiry, when Nicole and I were talking about this, we obviously needed to shrink it down into this session. And in fact, each one of these components, WICOR, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading, could literally be a 2 to 3 day training if you were going to a summer institute on this, each one. So we're just kind of like giving you the highlights on this, giving you a few things. But probably one of the hardest one, I would argue, of these components is inquiry. Because as an instructor, when we come to class, we're like, we're trying to ask them questions, right? But I don't know if y'all are like me, where sometimes I feel like I can't ever get past like level 1 questions, like just basic understanding. They should have pre-read or already know this information. So for inquiry, it is quality matters. Okay, so not much as how many questions you ask, but those purposeful questions. And not only you asking those questions, but the fact that the students are at a point where they can then ask you good questions, right? That's just not that level 1. Okay. So students who inquire, analyze, and synthesize, clarify their own thinking, probe others' thinking, and work through ambiguity. Okay. So we were going to do, if this is face-to-face, Nicole and I like to do a jigsaw, which is piggybacked with philosophical chairs, which if you have a large group, it's amazing. But for online today, we're going to get into Costa's levels of thinking. You've probably heard about this, and if you don't recall Costa's, you'll understand what we're talking about in this section. And then we have a short video to go ahead and practice those skills. Okay, I hope y'all can see this on your screen on my PowerPoint. It's a little small. Bloom's taxonomy. I don't know how many of you have seen this. I know before we get into Costa's level of thinking, but I want to just briefly show you this. And I show this pretty much in every training that I do, because if you look at the pyramid, a lot of students are going to be there with you on that knowledge, right? That basic remembering. And then comprehension, okay, fewer will actually do that. And then application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluate. Like nobody ever makes it to, I hate to say nobody, not many make it to that higher level. But what we really would love is if we had the same amount of participation as that comprehension or application level on the evaluation. I don't think that it is realistic to think that 100%, we would love that 100% of our students would get there, but maybe we take that 20% and make it 60% or 70% that can get that higher level thinking. I know that that's kind of asking for a lot, but if you really look into Bloom's taxonomy, the higher up you go, the harder it is. But we've got to get them utilizing their materials and being able to answer higher level thinking questions. But in addition to that, we as the instructors need to create those questions, even in our lectures, be able to have targeted questions so that we can begin to expose our students to these. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit more, and Nicole's going to go over it with you, about something right now you can do in your class, and that is target questioning. Okay, I'll let you.
So everybody here, I'm assuming, is familiar, right, with Costa's levels of inquiry, kind of like Bloom's taxonomy, except there's 3 levels, right? Level 1 is like kind of the basic level of, sometimes this is where students kind of, when you first get them, this is where they're at, right? So they can answer questions where they can find the answers right in the textbook, right? They can recall information maybe they heard, and this kind of just like a regurgitating, right? They can describe something or list something. So they usually don't have problems with those kind of questions. So once we get into the second level and the third level is where some of our students kind of run into problems. So level 2, we ask them to kind of make some sense of the information that they're gathering. They can combine information and maybe look at things in a different way, can do a little bit of critical thinking, make some inferences to the text to support their responses. But where we want them to be is at that level 3 where they apply and evaluate information and can kind of give their own opinions or make their own judgments and use the facts to justify their positions, right? So that they're doing more evaluating and evaluating information and can summarize in their own words rather than just regurgitating the text, right? So we got to get them from point 1 to point 3. And so what we're going to do today is we are going to take a look at a video and we're going to practice ourselves to make sure we understand the difference in the types of questions that we can ask our students. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch this video, and it's a timely video. It's a short, like a 5-minute video on from PBS, so we're not being political. We're watching a news report from PBS that says parents, called Parents and Students Reevaluate College Costs Amid Virtual Learning, right? This is a hot topic right now amongst students and parents. And as you're watching the video, we want you yourselves, as you're listening to it, to come up with 3 different level questions. So we want you to come up with a level 1 question, right, that a student could just answer by listening to the video themselves. A level 2 question that you could ask that asks them to do a little bit of examining and analyzing the information in the video. And then we want you to write your own level 3 question where we want the students to have to dig deeper and form their own opinion and then justify it with the fact. Okay, does everybody understand what we're doing? So you're each going to write your own level question. So each person's going to write 3 questions.
And after the video, we can take it back to the slide that kind of defines the levels as well.
Yeah, we'll do that. So the video is like 5 minutes. It's not very long.
And you can put them in the chat. Is that what we're going to do, Nicole?
Yeah, we can probably just keep it in the chat. I'll text you in a sec.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm going to share my screen so we can watch this video. It's about 5 minutes. So as you're watching the video, come up with questions that you would ask your students if they were watching it. A level 1 question, a level 2 question, and a level 3 question.
Higher education's response to the pandemic, especially the move away from in-person classes to online learning, is highlighting larger questions about the high price tag on a college degree. Scott Galloway is a leading voice in that debate. He's a leading critic of high tuition costs. He's a professor of marketing at New York University, and he joins us now. Scott, thanks so much for joining us. What has this pandemic, this move away, the response we've seen from colleges, some of them putting all their classes online, what's that done to this debate about college tuition costs?
Well, COVID-19 isn't as much a change agent as it is an accelerator. And we've seen tuition up 2.5-fold over the last 20 years at public universities. Meanwhile, the product really hasn't changed much. So try and name an industry that has increased its prices 150% with no underlying increase in output or innovation. What this has done is drawn back the curtain and what has become incredibly unsustainable pricing. Spring used to be a season of nervousness and joy about where you were going to school. Now it's become one of financial despair, and we have priced ourselves literally out of the market. And with remote learning, a lot of parents and students are deciding it's just not worth it.
It's not worth it. They don't see the value of paying tuition to sit in front of a computer.
Well, primarily speaking, a university, the value is from 3 things: the certification, the education, and the experience. And we have raised prices so quickly that any sort of reduction in any one of those 3 things has really caused people to decide or rethink their decision. And with the experience so dramatically decreased or disabled, if you will, a lot of parents are saying, do I really want to pay $58,000, $68,000 a year for a series of Zoom classes?
My colleague, producer Courtney Norris, spoke with Terry Hartle, who's Senior Vice President of the American Council on Education, which represents about 1,700 colleges and universities, and asked him about some of these issues. And I want you to listen to what he had to say on this question of costs, and then we'll talk about it afterward.
Colleges and universities were funded about $8 billion in room and board charges alone in the spring when they closed early. Taken together, lost revenue, cost increases, enrollment declines, cuts in state support, and increases in student financial need add up to roughly $120 billion. To put that in context, total revenue of colleges and universities in 2018 was $650 billion. So we're dealing with a sudden traumatic shock to the budgetary systems of every institution of higher education.
What do you have to say to that, that this is actually increasing costs or for colleges and universities?
There's no doubt about it. Mr. Hartle and his constituents find themselves in a very tough place. The question is, did we have it coming? And that is, how are they responding? And instead of cutting costs and doing what every other industry is doing and does on a regular basis, instead of having an open and sober conversation and cutting costs such that we can increase the quality of remote learning while decreasing costs, we have entered into consensual hallucination with our finance departments and parents that we can have some semblance of a normal experience such that we can continue to charge these usurious rates. And what is the mother of all tone-deaf decisions? My host institution, NYU, has decided to raise their tuition 3.5%. So what I would say to Mr. Hartle is that he has to endure the same pain as every other industry that consumes their product standing or sitting shoulder to shoulder, whether it's sports, whether it's restaurants, whether it's sports, and that is get to the good work of cost cutting and getting leaner and meaner. Instead, they've entered into this era of denial, which will only make the unwinding in the fall that we're gonna have even more painful.
You've also said that you think this is going to make a change in what higher education looks like. What do you think higher education will look like after the pandemic?
I think it'll be a hybrid model. It'll be a mix of online and offline. Faculty has been very resistant to embracing technology. I'm not suggesting it's an either or, but an and. The reality is many of these classes could be taught online with the same level of outcome. It's the off-campus socialization that is probably the most valuable thing in terms of in-person. So you can envision the silver lining here is as big as the cloud. If we move to a scenario where, again, with innovation and the embrace of small and big tech and reduction in the cost and an dramatic increase in supply of freshman seats, we might find, like every other industry, that we can increase the quality of the product and lower the price. And we have done neither of those in education. This isn't a debate, it's an IQ test. Any sober analysis of the upside versus the downside shows that we are going to be all remote across almost every university this fall. It's just a question of how many infections we endure and how much pain we levy on university communities. Universities, John, have been the warriors fighting viruses, not its enablers. We need to close campuses, full stop, right away.
Scott Galloway of New York University's Stern School of Business. Thank you very much.
Okay. Steph, you want to put the PowerPoint back up so we can, and then I'm going to give you guys each an example of what we want you to do. So we want you, based on that video that we all just watched, to come up with three different levels of questions that you could ask your students. So like a level 1 question might be something as simple as Scott Galloway works for what university, right? If they were just paying half attention, they can answer that. They can read that on the screen. That would be an example of a level 1 question. A level 2 question then could be something like colleges have seen some budgetary shock in the time of COVID. What are 3 causes of budget problems, right? So they can still kind of find that answer in the video we just watched, but they have to pay a little closer attention and the answer might not be just in one place, right? So then a level 3 example question would be something like, in what way can online learning be presented so that it's worth a student's expense, right? So that wasn't overtly discussed in the video, right? But we're asking them to take that information, come up with their own opinion, and then provide a solution. So that would be the level 3 question. Okay, does everyone understand what we're doing? So we're going to give you some time. I don't think we're going to go into groups. We'll just let you unless you want to do groups, and then each group can just come up with 3 questions. What do you want to do, Steph?
It's we could do the breakout groups.
Okay, so before we go into groups, does everyone understand what we're doing? Yes?
Everybody got it? Awesome.
All right, so each group then comes up with a level 1 question, a level 2 question, and a level 3 question based on that video. So I'm going to put you in groups now, and we'll do 3 groups again.
Sorry, I had myself on mute. Hey, everybody. We're going to come back together, and if you would just share, someone from your group want to share. If you also want to type it in the chat, that would be great. We're going to wrap this up after this activity. And so when we see you again on October, I believe it's the 22nd. Let me double check. That'll be the second part of the WICOR training, and you'll get your certification. Now, I am going to post right now, as you're going to be speaking in the group chat, the link for you to sign in today, because you'll need to sign in for your record that you were here. And if you do talk to anybody, unfortunately, there were some people that could not make it today. But we are not offering the first part again till next semester, so that might be a little challenging for them. So, Nicole, if you wouldn't mind taking it from here. Sorry, my computer's. There we go. Okay, sorry.
No, that's all right. So can we have a volunteer to share with us an example of a level 1 question that you might ask your class if they viewed that video? Or you can type it, or just shout it out. It's fine. Tim, okay?
Yeah, mine was just maybe asking what has happened to tuition over the last 20 years.
Very good, very good. And Dr. Meyer, I see, what is the issue? Very good, right. So those are level 1 questions, right? So even if they were just kind of half listening, they can answer that question relatively easy. So then what would be an example of a level 2 question after having watched that video? What's a level 2 question you could ask your students? So Dr. Meyer says, consider both perspectives and describe their position. Yes. So again, so that's you're asking a little bit more of them, right? They can still find that answer within the video itself, but they got to dig a little deeper and think a little bit more. They've got to gather that information and organize their thoughts. So that is definitely a level 2. Affected the cost of, yes, Dr. Young, that's also a really good level 2 question. How has COVID-19 affected the cost of college tuition?
Yeah.
Right. So the answer's there, but they had to have been paying attention, and they got to pull all those thoughts and arguments together for themselves. So that's a level 2 question. Very good. What would be an example of a level 3 question? We want them to be able to apply what they heard and evaluate it for themselves. So what would be a good level 3 question? Okay, let's see. What is the future of traditional education, college experience in a rapidly developing digital world for students? Yes, right. So we want them to dig a little deeper for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Based on what you heard, what would you expect the cost going to be in the future? Very good. Yes, very good, Dr. Young. That's a great one also, right? Because they've got to take a position and justify their position, right? Same thing with what would higher education look like post-pandemic. So they've got to take into consideration what they heard in the video, apply that to their own experiences as well, and then present their answer and justify it. It's a wonderful job. Right, exactly. So it seems to be the hybrid. Yeah, so we're going to, yeah, the hybrid model might be more feasible. We'll see how things are looking, right? Definitely. I know on campus next semester, the provost wants to have more face-to-face classes. We'll see how that shapes up for us, I guess. So very good. So we have, according to Scott Galloway, exactly. So very good, right? So we have an understanding of those different levels of questions that we want to ask, be able to ask of our students, and we really want them to be able to get to that level 3. Stephanie, was there anything else you wanted to add about inquiry before we wrap up for the day, or does anybody here have any questions for us? Steph, I think you did put the link in the chat for everyone to sign in.
Please make sure y'all sign in, guys. Please, 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 right now, because whenever whenever Nicole and I get off the Blackboard here, you have that link anymore. I want to make sure that everybody, I have you on record being here. So you won't receive a certificate for part 1. But when you come to part 2, you'll receive the full WICOR training certificate. So there's part 1, part 2, but you got to do both to get the WICOR training. Okay?
Does anybody have any questions for us before we call it a day? Y'all have been wonderful. Thank you for helping us model AVID strategies and collaborate. Hopefully you can use some of these things yourselves. You are very welcome. It was so nice
Very
to
welcome.
see all of you. Yeah, it was very nice to see all of you. And we hope to see you back next time as well.
Yes. Let me tell you the date. Hold on, I have it here. Oh, and then our coffee talk on Tuesday.
There's a coffee talk on Tuesday. Yes.
Okay, so it's October 23rd. Friday, October 23rd is the second part. Again, from 1 to 3. And then this Tuesday is our coffee talk. All right? Okay,
all right.
I'm gonna stay on here just a few more minutes because I see that everybody still has not signed in. Even our signatures are socially distanced. That's so funny. I don't know who wrote that on the sign-in sheet.
All right.
But make sure, please, that you're signing in because I won't have record of it. Okay, well, thank y'all so much, and we'll talk to you soon. Like I said, I'll be on here a few more minutes to give y'all a chance to sign in, but I'll see you soon. See you next time.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.